MultiVersus actually managed to shut down, and not the way that people normally shut down a game, because normally when you want to kill a game, you kind of just disconnect the servers and that's it, the game's dead. But MultiVersus is actually doing something kind of different, because you're allowed to play the game even after it's shut down. It's not a private server that they're giving it to you, it's just like you can play the game. So the way that the developers explained it is that they're actually going to shut down the live service because the open beta is closing on June 25th, and at that point you won't be able to play the game online. Today, which is April 4th, they actually removed the game from the Steam store. So what happens is that everyone who has the game right now, you're allowed to keep playing the game online. It's kind of like what happened to Flappy Bird, because Flappy Bird, when it was disconnected, if you had the game on your phone, cool, you can keep playing it. If you deleted it, you just couldn't get it anymore. So as of right now, you can't download MultiVersus, but if you already have MultiVersus, you can play online until June 25th. And after that, you can still play offline. So the reason that they explain on the blog post as to why they're actually doing this in the first place, instead of just having a running open beta, kind of like just how Fortnite does it, or just like every other game does it, is because they have a clear view of what we need to focus on, specifically the content cadence of new characters, maps, and modes, to give you guys more ways to enjoy the game. I kind of understand why they want to shut down the game so they can work on it in private, because it's kind of hard to come up with new stuff while still trying to maintain the ongoing current stuff and not really screw up that part of the current stuff, because if you don't have as many players as you used to and your community is basically dead, which, by the way, the concurrent player base for MultiVersus is down by almost 99%, so that's kind of funny. They're basically saying, let us shut down the game so we don't have to focus on constantly throwing out updates to keep you entertained, and we'll just do a soft relaunch in the future. And when we use the term soft relaunch, the first thing that comes to my mind is literally what every single other game is doing right now. So they're doing Overwatch 2, you guys know this, Counter-Strike 2, you know, everything's a sequel now, but there's no really clear-cut definition of what a sequel actually means. So basically, you could throw out like one tiny update, slap a 2 on it, there's your sequel game, enjoy the hype, you know? But does closing down the game and soft relaunching mean that it's going to be successful the second time around? Are people going to be coming back to the game just as hype as they were the first time? Well, not necessarily, and it really depends on the type of game that you're trying to relaunch and the type of things that were wrong with it in the first place, because a lot of people had really high expectations of what MultiVersus was about. It was the most massive and epic crossover of all time, including Fortnite, by the way, because you had Bugs Bunny, you had Superman, you had Batman, Arya Stark, Finn and Jake, you know, all these wacky characters that you've never really seen them interact with each other, kind of like how Smash Bros has Kirby versus Sephiroth. So a lot of people saw this Smash-like clone and they had high hopes for it, because you had fresh characters backed up by a massive Warner Bros company. And I mean, not to mention that the game was really competitive and fast, and it was really fluid, and it was actually really fun to play. But none of that matters because of the way they managed the game after release, which I think is ultimately what ended up killing the game in the first place. Because yeah, you had advertisement problems because most of their stuff was just Twitter posts. Right after the game's release, they had Evo with the $100,000 cash prize, and that got literally everyone hyped. You got the Smash players, you got the non-Smash players, the content creators and streamers. Everyone had their eyeballs on MultiVersus. But then after Evo, people were just like looking forward for the next update. They were looking forward for Ranked, which to this day, Ranked is still not available. You still can't play Ranked for whatever reason. Apart from the lack of content that they had after Evo and the lack of rank, the updates that they were throwing out, the characters were kind of sucky, you know, because you got Rick and Morty, that was amazing. But then you had Gizmo and Stripe. Black Adam's okay, you know, because yeah, Black Adam the movie, but you had like these two gremlin characters and you're just like, no one really cared about this. I mean, when I first heard about Gizmo, I thought it was like Gizmo from Teen Titans. That would have been super hype, but then you got this little furball, like, okay, that what? So I guess the characters that they were adding were just really not hype to begin with, and apart from just not being hype, they were always being delayed, and people kind of just, they got tired of waiting, you know? A lot of the common complaints that I read was that people were just complaining that the battle pass was way too long and way too tedious. I mean, battle passes by themselves are already feeling like a chore no matter what game you're playing, and for some reason the progression that you were getting on this one just felt a lot harder than it needed to be. And the final nail on the coffin for MultiVersus, the one thing I think that just completely eradicated the player base, was the fact that the game was hyper competitive. The game really rewarded competitive gameplay instead of just more casual play. So you had these hyper sweaty players that just play the game in and out, and you as a casual player that just want to get into it and check it out, you're just getting absolutely destroyed the whole time. And that's the one goal golden rule about fighting games, unfortunately, that you want to make the fighting game competitive, so that way people are hyped about it, but you also don't want to make it too punishing for new players to get into the game and play. And that's a trend I've seen for games that are leaning more towards the competitive side, and not having that fun little game mode for the casual players, because you don't have that many items, you don't have wacky stages, you kind of just have, you know, Battlefield, Final Destination, Yoshi's Story. You have all these like layouts that are just meant for competitive, so the casual players are just not catching the break. So the people at Player First Games, they kind of just did the best strategy that they could with what they got, because if your game's dead and it's not really getting you anywhere, might as well just shut it down, work on it on the backside instead of just having to do everything that you have to do. But will this actually work? Maybe. Maybe. There's no really way to tell, unfortunately, because you have a gaming studio that kind of just understands what the players want. So if you have someone like Shaggy, for example, you lean into the memery, into the Ultra Instinct Shaggy. You didn't have to make Shaggy go Ultra Instinct, you really didn't, but you did, and it was amazing. So I really do hope that they manage to bounce back and actually get everything that needs to get done. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say, guys. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you later.